So the Tempest Cup is starting March 1st through the 31st. The Tempest Cup will be the preferred format for the Silph Arena. If you're just coming in here and you don't know what the Silph Arena is, it's basically organized competitive play for Pokemon Go PvP. So if you want some more information on that, link in the description to the Silph Arena so you can get learned up. Tempest Cup, we're limited to 4 types as per usual, and these types are Ice type, Flying type, Electric type, and Ground type Pokemon. As you can tell from this graphic here, it looks like the Ground type Pokemon are kind of the big losers in this format, right? Now as far as this infographic goes, it was designed by myself in collaboration with Lorma96 and Bioweapon from the Game Press crew. You might be familiar with Lorma96. He did the Twilight Cup article and infographic for Game Press, and then Bioweapon is like just the definitive PvP god of Game Press. Everybody bows down to Bioweapon. Basically, the three of us did our own independent research, and then the other night we just got together and just hammered out the details here, right? So I just slopped this together in MS Paint with what I had cooking at the time, mostly using Lorma's suggestions, and then with the final polish with Bioweapon here, and this is what we have. If you're curious, Lorma96 will be doing the Tempest Cup article for Game Press again. At the time of recording this video, the article is not out yet, but when it does come out, link in the description to that article. Very worth your time for reading. Lorma will also have a more polished infographic, so if you don't like the Flork images, I mean, I don't know how you don't like the Flork images, but if you want a more professional looking infographic, well, Lorma is full of professionalisms. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Now let's get into the details of this format. So starting out, the main aggressors in this format, the rock of the rock paper scissors, if you will, are the Razor Leaf users. Yeah, you got Abomasnow and Tropius. So these guys, insane. They got Razor Leaf. Razor Leaf was buffed, and it's insane. We didn't see it so much in the Twilight Cup because we had all these poison types running around, but here, very low resistance, right? The only thing really resisting them are, well, these guys, the flying types, right? So that's how you answer the Razor Leaf users. Yeah. So Razor Leaf users, really solid, just destroy everything, and they're probably the main reason why a lot of the water ground mudshot users really don't have a chance to stand out, because the moment they come out, it's like Toxicroak and Venomoth, right? They just get obliterated by their double weakness to grass type attacks. So very simple in their usage. Another cool benefit to these Razor Leaf users is you don't really have to worry about their charge moves too much. So Abomasnow really isn't going to get to, what is it, Energy Ball and Blizzard. Like, you're probably never going to have the opportunity to use those attacks. Maybe you will, right? But just sticking with Outrage should be fine. So you could save yourself some dust and candy that way. And then if you are prestigious, what is it, privileged? Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. If you're privileged enough to have the Tropius, well then yeah, Tropius, you might want to have the second move, because Razor Leaf with Leaf Blade would be the preferred moveset. But having like Stomp, or what is it, Aerial Ace, could help you beat the Tropius Mirror, which might be something you might be worried about. So yeah, keep that in mind if you have a Tropius. Tropius's inclusion in this meta does spark a little controversy because it is such a regional exclusive Pokemon to like Africa. Who the heck has a Tropius? I don't know. So there's a lot of arguments that have already sparked online about this, because it's like, oh, you spoofed for your Tropius. No, I didn't. I traded for it. Oh, you traded from a spoofer. Hey, wait, I know that spoofer. You paid that guy like $50 for that Tropius. Those kind of arguments are going to erupt, so it is kind of lame. I feel like the Silph maybe should have put a little embargo on Tropius in certain regions, but they don't seem to be letting up on that. Fortunately, Tropius and Abomasnow have many answers in the meta, so no real concerns. If you don't have a Tropius, you're just gonna have to develop your team without. And I don't have a Tropius. I'm developing my team without. Cool inclusion. Boulder Cup and Twilight Cup, Ryan Swag, way too busy to participate. But I do have spring break, and I do have most of my members of my team already set for the Tempest Cup, so perhaps I'll be able to get some points on the board, some action in here. So stay tuned for, I guess, updates on that, right? So how do we best beat these Razor Leaf users? What is the paper that covers the rock here? Flying types, right? Yeah. It's sort of like, man, this is kind of reminiscent of the Boulder Cup, where we had Metacham being insane, and then we had Skarmory beating down the Metacham. Well, instead of Metacham, we got Razor Leaf users, and Skarmory's got some friends now. We got Altaria and Charizard in the mix. So Altaria and Skarmory being really good in this meta isn't that big of a surprise. Like, you might be thinking all the ice type and electric type damage would hold them down, but these guys are the greatest in the Great League already. They already have to deal with that nonsense on a day-to-day basis outside of the Silph Arena. So what, you're limiting the Pokemon that can be used in the arena, and you think that's going to limit their viability? I don't think so, man. Altaria and Skarmory are still insane at what they do. And I feel like Altaria is insane enough where it's arguably like a for sure Pokemon every single team's going to want to have. So I put a little crown on it. So main thing I really like about Altaria in this particular meta is that it brutalizes things that try to counter it. Altaria does have counters. It does have the ice types. You know, it's got these guys. It's got Skarmory. It's got steel type Pokemon. If you're meant to counter something, but you come out of countering it almost dead, did you really counter them? Like, did you really plus from that interaction with Altaria? So I feel like for that reason, Altaria is really aggressive and really powerful in this meta, and any meta. It's just like how it is in the Great League, right? So Altaria countered low-key here by the Skarmory, and Skarmory has some pretty similar swag to the Altaria in the fact that it's just a really aggressive Pokemon. The ice-water types here that are meant to counter the flying types, right? But because of the steel typing, those hits are only neutral. Once again, well, now things aren't going to be too easy for these guys. They're going to come out of that fight a bit brutalized. Maybe they're going to be taken out. And if you double up and you got Altaria and Skarmory on the same team and you just took out their ice-type Pokemon, you may have just paved the way to an Altaria sweep or a Skarmory sweep. Sans these special boys over here and this guy. So Skarmory, really cool. One thing I do want to note is that in the past, I felt that going just Air Slash with the Sky Attack is the only way to do Skarmory. And similar with Altaria, just Dragon Breath with the Sky Attack. But in the Tempest Cup, you may want to dish out for their second moves. You know, Dragon Pulse and Flash Cannon, I believe, respectively. Because that coverage could come in clutch in certain matchups. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Finally, in this crew, we got Charizard. And yeah, Charizard's freaking Charizard, man. So like, why wouldn't it be good? The main highlight it has in this meta is Skarmory's good. It beats Skarmory. These adjunct steel and ice types are really good. And it beats them. So if your opponent's thinking that they're going to be really cheeky, taking on the flying types and maybe Tropius with these guys, well then Charizard just shows up and kind of ruins their hopes and dreams there. Another cool thing I like about Charizard is it can be pretty aggressive too. For example, if you were to lead with like, I don't know, let's say Altaria, and then your opponent switched in like a Steelix to take out Altaria, but then you switch into Charizard, so then you just eat the Steelix alive. Well, when they switch their Altaria back in to counter the Charizard, you've got that Dragon Claw damage already charged up, right? So you can threaten it with the Dragon Claw damage. Just like the other birds here, Charizard can be really aggressive with its early activation of charge moves and just potent damage just constantly pummeling you while also, you know, beating the things that it's meant to beat, like the double weakness to fire Abomasnow over here. Yeah, so Charizard, really freaking good. Definitely worth investing in if you have one, but you will want to have the Blast Burn. Yeah, there's no escaping the Blast Burn there, so sorry guys. I don't have a Blast Burn Charizard, so I gotta deal with the suck too. That's just how that is. So, flying type Pokemon. What are they dealt with by the best? Well, we got Lapras and Celio over here. So Lapras, also kind of controversial with legacy moves. The Ice Shard with the Ice Beam and Surf would be Lapras's theoretically best moveset, but if you don't have Ice Shard, but you still have Ice Beam, Water Gun can work just as well. Now, if you are missing out on the Ice Beam, well then Lapras does become a little bit more flaky. You might want to look at maybe having something else in that team slot, but Lapras can still be functional even without Ice Beam, just a little bit more of a risky pick. Now, why would you want to use Frost Breath instead of Water Gun? Well, if you don't have Ice Shard, that's basically it, because it'd do the same job of doing the ice type damage, so you'd be able to counter Altaria and Tropius a little bit better with the Frost Breath, but it's because you don't have Ice Shard and you want to do that. And it's not exactly that big of a downgrade either, so yeah, no real problems downgrading to Frost Breath or downgrading question mark to Water Gun. I think Water Gun might actually be a little bit better than Ice Shard, so yeah, just keep that in mind. Why would Water Gun be better? Well, you still win these two matchups, and then it also helps clean up these matchups a little bit more easily, and then you also win the mirror, and winning the mirror is pretty sweet. Then we got Celio over here, and Celio has the Powdered Snow, so it's got really fast energy gains there with the ice type damage, and then it has Body Slam, which is the body spam, and then combined with the energy gains of Powder Snow, yeah, you're definitely spamming your body around, slapping things. Advantages to using Celio over Lapras is that Celio beats Lapras, and isn't entirely vulnerable to Lanturn, where Lanturn just completely shuts down Lapras. Problems using the Celio is Skarmory gives you a lot of harassment, so just be wary of that. And then finally, in this little circle we got going on here, we have Lanturn. And Lanturn's big claim to fame is that it just completely destroys the water ice type crew over here. I mean, Celio can kind of bite back with the body slam, but at the end of the day, Lanturn kind of carries its weight pretty strong. It also shuts down Skarmory and Charizard. Doesn't do so hot against Altaria, but it's mostly here to wall these guys. It's like the primary use. This is like the extra spice that Lanturn has going on. Another benefit to Lanturn is that the Steel and Ice type Pokemon really don't like dealing with Lanturn either. You might be thinking, Ryan, Swag, wouldn't Magneton have the advantage on Lanturn? Ultimately, it really doesn't. Yeah, the water gun damage kind of rips through it, so he has to be a little bit wary there. Big problem with the Lanturn is, well, it loses to Altaria in most situations, and Altaria is crazy good. I feel like every team should have it, so that's not good. And then it also gets destroyed by the Razor Leaf users, and I feel like every team should have one, if not both Razor Leaf user on it. Definitely not looking too hot for the Lanturn. That said, Lanturn does beat things that can beat them, so really good Pokemon right there. Then finally, we got the Wildcards, the little side picks over here, right? And starting out, we have not Wobbuffet. You might know it as Quagsire. So yeah, Quagsire is the only Mudshot user that really made it through this meta, and the only like true ground type. I mean, Steelix is a ground type, but at the end of the day, the only true ground type Pokemon to really survive in this meta. And the main reason why Quagsire is doing so well is because it has that Stone Edge damage. Yeah, because you got the ice types and the flying types. What, these two? The guys that destroy this guy? Yeah, if you got energy advantage, Stone Edge just cuts right through them. Flying types, Stone Edge. Skarmory is feeling a little bit strong here, but these guys, not so much. The Ice Waters, well, they're ice type, right? Stone Edge. Yeah, and then Lanturn's electric, so Mudshot's already given it enough problems. And then everything else here, they don't want to deal with Quagsire. So Quagsire does seem like it's like this hidden master type Pokemon, but the main thing that really holds it back in a huge way is just the grass types. They just show up and they melt it. And I feel like every single team is going to have at least one grass type Pokemon, so there's a lot of threat there. And then for a lot of the matchups that it would be beating, presumably, if it has energy or shield disadvantage, well, then it's going down. And in a lot of neutral scenarios, if it doesn't have energy advantage, it can also go down there. So a little bit of a trickier Pokemon to use, and has some really clear defined hang-ups called Razor Leaf. Marshtomp and Daddy Cash just have the deck stacked against them. I mean, Marshtomp does have Sludge, but well, let's be real here. Save yourself the trouble and either don't use any Mudshot Pokemon or just use this guy. Then we got Magneton here, making a reprise in this meta, being awesome with its electric and steel typing, so the sky attacks don't trouble this guy any at all. And then it also resists ice type attacks, and it also resists grass type attacks, so really awesome. Now if you're sitting at home and you're crying, you don't have the legacy discharge Magneton, what am I supposed to do? Well, Magneton's still as functional as ever with Zap Cannon. The main reason why you can get around this, where in, I guess, the greater Great League meta, you'd probably definitely want to have Discharge, is because so many things are just hit by Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb is a bit better than Discharge is in a neutral situation, and then it also has effectiveness on Ice-type Pokemon. So you can kind of bully a lot of things in this meta with Magnet Bomb just as well as you would with your Discharge damage. And the things you can't, like, I don't know, Steelix, well, you're not going to get around Steelix anyway. And then Skarmory, you might be like, Ryan, Swag, my Magnet Bombs don't bother Skarmory. Well, Skarmory can't touch you. Like, Skarmory auto loses to you so hard that you can basically just fast move, spam it, and win. Yeah, Magneton, a lot of really cool advantages to it. I also have some hangups too, though. It's a little fragile. So if you're up against this guy, Lapras down here, and it's got the advantage over you, the surf damage could aggro you down. The water gun damage from Lanturn can also aggro you down, and then you have freaking Charizard to deal with, and Charizard just shows up and says, hey man. One thing I do want to quick note is Discharge will allow you to overcome Charizard in some situations, so that's another advantage to Discharge. But at the end of the day, not that big of a deal. I feel like this problem would be a bit circumvented though if Magnezone existed in the meta, so hopefully Magnezone comes out in the next month to give players some more options, because Magnezone is just a strict upgrade to Magneton in all these various senses. So let's pray for Magneton. And if you're sitting at home thinking like, Ryan Swag, what about Magnemite? Magnemite can have the Discharge moveset. Well, Magnemite is actually just a strict downgrade to Legacy Magneton. Before, it was able to have some slight advantages over Magneton because of the Thunderbolt damage, but Thunderbolt got nerfed. So now it's like on the same level as Magneton, and then Magneton is just straight up better than it. I don't feel like a maxed out Magnemite really has any place in this particular meta. It's just a little bit too frail. Then we got the Ice types down here. The Ice types, initially we were thinking Piloswine and Alola Ninetales could be good, but I put X's on them because they're not. So don't bother with these guys in this meta. I'd say the Snorunt evolutions, really powerful Avalanche access. So Frostlass, you got the Powdered Snow if you want to get to Avalanche sooner. Hockey Mask Man, he's got Ice Shard, I believe. Or is it Frost Breath? I don't know. Intermission here. Does it have Ice Shard or Frost Breath? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same shit, but it's got both. And then the Ice Shard can just cut through the Tropius and the Altaria really well. And then you've got frickin' Alolan Sandslash. Alolan Sandslash is lacking in the moveset department, which kind of hurts it in a lot of ways, but it is gaining in the type advantage department. Yeah, the Steel Ice. So the key resistances that it has allows it to really get ahead in this particular meta, despite its detriments. So yeah, definitely check out these guys. Maybe run some simulations on them first before slotting them into your core team strategies though. One key reason why I think you'd want to consider using these guys is maybe if you didn't have an Ice Beam Lapras, just so you could have some extra ice type threat to handle these double weak boys up here. And then finally, we have Steelix. And Steelix's main claim to fame is its ability to wall the not Charizard flying type Pokemon. And it also gets a unique advantage over the Razor Leaf Pokemon as well. You'd think Steelix would lose to them, but depending on the shield and energy situation, Steelix can actually get the advantage on them. So yeah, Steelix is probably overall the most wild of the wild cards, where in a lot of these other matchups too, such as the Water Ice types, Lanturn, and the Ice type Pokemon here, it's not 100% explicit if Steelix is going to be the winner or the loser. So if your opponent is deficient in Steelix knowledge and you are proficient in Steelix matchup knowledge, then you could easily just get the one over on them and they wouldn't even realize it before it's too late. That said, if you're deficient in Steelix matchup knowledge, well then you might not want to use Steelix because you could just put yourself a little bit behind using Steelix inappropriately on your team. If you are using Steelix, definitely want to go with the Dragon Tail and the Crunch, and then Earthquake and Heavy Slam. That's a choice because Heavy Slam gives you a little bit more of an advantage in ice type matchups, but the Earthquake is just the solid quake to deal with anything that doesn't resist it. Steelix, really awesome Pokemon. And then finally, two Pokemon that aren't on this graphic but will be included on Lorma96's infographic is Alolan Graveler and Alolan Golem. I feel like those Pokemon are a little bit too flaky overall, but they do carry the advantage of rapid rock type damage. So these flying types here, they don't want to deal with them. And then the ice types presumably don't want to deal with them. I'm just going to call Tropius ice. It's flying. They're both weak to rock. They don't want to deal with that. And then these guys down here, they don't want to deal with that. But I think their matchups are a little bit too flaky in that, in the same breath, like, oh yeah, they're really good, but they're also kind of flaky at the same time. Alolan Golem and Alolan Graveler could really work out for some players, but I just don't see them being that great overall. They have a defined use, they have a defined place in this meta, but I'm just not feeling them. So you might feel differently, and I feel like they will net you success in a rock paper scissors situation, but outside of that, I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll lose to some Alolan Gravelers and Golems in my Tempest Cup trials, and it'll completely change my life. But that's it. That's the Tempest Cup simplified. Yeah, if you got any questions on this content, maybe I left out your favorite waifu Pokemon, well, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll try to help you navigate the matchup. Maybe you'll open my eyes to the hidden master of the meta that Ryan Swag overlooked. Or perhaps you could keep that information to yourself and if Ryan Swag's not picking up on the secret strategy, well, then maybe you're all knowledgeable about the secret strategy, right? Yeah. And if you enjoyed this content, you want to see more like it, maybe you want to follow some updates on my own Tempest Cup trials, well, then make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. One thing I will note is a lot of people seem to be hyped about Rhyperior. PvPoke and Poke Battler both seem to rate Rhyperior really well. and I'm really just not feeling Rhyperior. It's doubly weak to grass, so that's a huge neg, and then it also loses to the Mudshot users, which is a neg, and then it also loses to water damage, which is a neg. So I feel like it's got just way too many negatives, like way too many drawbacks for something to counter, flying type Pokemon reliably? Yeah, Rhyperior, definitely not feeling it. You might want to not include it on your team if you're already thinking that. But if you think it's the Hidden Master, hey, maybe SwagTips is wrong, and maybe I'll get learned up on Rhyperior's power in the future. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these patron supporters. Basically, Ryan Swag's in school, and he's got no time for anything. So now he pays a video editor to help him out with editing some of his videos. Well, video editor costs money, so to pay for this, Patreon, right? So if you want to support the Swag Man and get invited to the Patreon Discord, well then check out my Patreon.